welcome to your deep dive.
It
looks like you've provided us with
Yeah.
a fascinating collection of excerpts
you too.
about the life and philosophy of Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz.
Yeah.
Quite the polymath.
Oh, yeah.
From math to philosophy to politics.
Oh.
Let's see what we can uncover together. You're in for some surprises.
I think we should start
Oh, yeah.
by addressing the elephant in the room.
Okay.
That famous quote, the best of all possible worlds.
Right?
People often misunderstand Leibniz on this,
Oh, really?
seeing it as this overly optimistic, even naive
Okay.
view of reality.
Yeah, like he's saying we're living in a utopia.
Right, exactly.
Which clearly isn't the case.
Exactly. But to understand Leibniz, we
Okay.
have to go back to the philosophical giants who came before him.
Okay.
Like Descartes.
Mhm.
Descartes argued that God, in his absolute power,
Yes.
could have created any world he wanted,
Mhm.
regardless of its perfection. This idea is called voluntarism.
Okay.
Then you have the opposite end of the spectrum, fatalism, which says everything is predetermined.
Right.
So why bother trying to change anything, right?
Right. So where does Leibniz fit into all of this?
Leibniz is trying to find a middle ground.
Okay.
He believed that God, being perfectly good and wise, would necessarily choose to create the best possible world.
Okay.
But this doesn't mean there's no evil or suffering.
Okay.
It's more about a balance, the optimal combination of good and bad.
So it's about the big picture,
Right.
not necessarily every single event.
Yeah.
But doesn't that still limit God's power? If he's choosing, doesn't that mean there are constraints?
That's a great question.
Okay.
And it gets to the heart of Leibniz's theodicy,
Okay.
his attempt to reconcile God's goodness with the existence of evil.
Okay.
He's essentially arguing that this world, even with its imperfections,
Yes.
is the best possible one because it allows for the greatest amount of good, or compossibles, as he called them, to exist together.
Okay.
It's a complex idea,
Yeah.
but it shows how Leibniz is trying to grapple with these really difficult philosophical questions.
And how different from Voltaire's satirical take in Candide?
It really shows you the power of context
Yeah.
and how a catchy phrase can take on a life of its own.
Speaking of context, let's delve into Leibniz's own life.
Okay.
I mean, what kind of mind comes up with these ideas?
Well, from what you've shared, it seems Leibniz was a prodigy,
Oh.
even as a child.
Okay.
He had access to his father's library and basically immersed himself in classic literature. He even taught himself Latin
Wow.
just so he could read more.
Wow. Talk about motivation.
Yeah.
But I read that he wasn't a huge fan of the dominant philosophy of his time, scholasticism.
That's right. Scholasticism was very much rooted in medieval thought, focused on logic and religious dogma.
Right.
Leibniz, with his love for the classics and their emphasis on human experience,
Okay.
found it too restrictive, too detached from the real world. He was more interested in observation and finding practical applications for knowledge.
Which makes sense given his later work.
Yeah.
Was there a particular moment when his philosophical journey began?
Well, the excerpts you provided mention this aha moment Leibniz had at just 14 years old.
Okay.
He became fascinated by the idea of a universal language,
Okay.
what he called the characteristica universal.
A universal language. What did he have in mind?
He envisioned a system where complex ideas
Okay.
could be broken down into simple symbols, kind of
Yeah.
like an equation.
Right.
This would allow for clear, unambiguous communication,
Okay.
eliminating disputes and accelerating the advancement of knowledge.
Okay.
Imagine no more misinterpretations.
That's a pretty ambitious goal.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the ultimate tool for deep diving into any subject.
Yeah.
But wasn't Leibniz also involved in more practical matters?
Yeah.
It's like diplomacy.
He was a diplomat for many years, traveling all over Europe, engaging with different cultures and political systems. This experience shaped his worldview and contributed to his belief that everything is interconnected.
Right.
In fact, it's likely that his diplomatic work fueled his philosophical ideas about harmony and finding common ground.
So he wasn't just an armchair philosopher then.
No.
This is starting to sound less like a life and more like an epic adventure story.
Yeah, well, he was,
Didn't I read something about him trying to get a doctorate but being denied?
yes.
Okay.
He was quite young at the time, and the university considered him too inexperienced.
Oh, really?
There are even stories about him being involved with alchemists.
Alchemists? Seriously?
It's true.
Oh, wow.
He was a curious soul,
Okay.
always willing to explore different ideas and avenues of knowledge.
Oh, this deep dive is certainly proving that.
Yeah.
So how do we connect his adventures and diplomatic life to this idea of universal harmony,
Well,
which seems to be at the core of his philosophy?
that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Leibniz believed there's an underlying order to the universe,
Go ahead.
a grand interconnectedness of everything.
Mm-hmm.
He saw this reflected in both the natural world and human society.
Right.
And this interconnectedness, he argued,
Right.
is governed by three fundamental principles.
Okay, let's hear them.
Okay.
What are these principles that make the universe tick?
Well, the first is the principle of contradiction,
Okay.
which states that something cannot be both true and false at the same time.
Mm.
This might sound obvious,
Right.
but it's fundamental to logic and reasoning.
It's like saying a square can't be a circle at the same time.
Yeah.
It has to be one or the other.
Exactly. The second principle
Okay.
is the principle of sufficient reason,
Okay.
which states that everything that exists
Mm.
has a reason for existing.
Okay.
Nothing happens without a cause or explanation.
Okay, so no random events.
Yeah.
Everything has a purpose.
Yeah,
But what about things like natural disasters
right.
or human suffering?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
And one that philosophers have debated for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Leibniz argued that even apparent randomness or suffering has a place in the grand scheme of things,
Okay.
even if we don't fully understand it.
Okay.
Remember, he's trying to reconcile the existence of evil with a benevolent God.
So even the bad stuff serves a purpose.
Well, in a way.
That's a challenging idea to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
What's the third principle?
The third principle is the principle of perfection.
Okay.
Leibniz believed that God, being perfect,
Mm-hmm.
created the most perfect world possible,
Okay.
given the constraints of logic and possibility.
Okay.
This ties back into his idea of the best of all possible worlds.
So it's not just about the absence of bad things,
Right.
but about the optimal combination of good and bad
Yeah.
to create a harmonious whole.
Precisely. And this idea of harmony is central to Leibniz's thinking.
Okay.
He saw the universe as a grand symphony,
Oh,
with all its parts working together, even the dissonant ones.
I'm starting to see how this connects to his concept of monads.
Okay.
Those fundamental units of reality you mentioned earlier.
Right.
Can you explain them a bit more?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Imagine a city viewed from different angles.
Okay.
Each person sees a different perspective, a different aspect of the city.
Yeah.
But it's still the same city.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
So each monad is like a unique perspective on the universe.
Yes.
Okay.
And each monad contains within itself a reflection of the entire universe.
Wow.
Leibniz described them as windowless
Okay.
because they don't directly interact with each other.
Okay.
Instead, they operate according to a pre-established harmony, like a perfectly synchronized dance.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But it sounds kind of deterministic, like everything is pre-programmed.
It's a valid point. Yeah.
And one that has been debated by philosophers.
Okay.
Leibniz saw this pre-established harmony
Mm-hmm.
as a testament to God's wisdom and design.
Okay.
He argued that it allows for both individual freedom and overall order.
This reminds me of Leibniz's work on calculus
Right.
and the concept of infinitesimals.
Yes.
It's like these tiny units contain the potential for infinite complexity and change, just like each monad reflects the whole universe within itself.
That's a brilliant connection.
Thanks.
Leibniz saw deep connections between mathematics, philosophy, and theology.
Okay.
He believed that the universe operates according to rational principles
Mm-hmm.
that can be expressed through both logic and mathematics.
And that brings us back to his idea of a universal language, right?
Yes.
The characteristica universal.
Right.
Was he actually trying to create a new spoken language?
Not exactly a spoken language,
Okay.
but more of a language of thought.
Okay.
Imagine a system of symbols that represent basic concepts.
Okay. And these symbols can be combined in various ways to express any complex idea.
Kind of like a philosophical Lego set.
I like that analogy.
Thanks.
Leibniz believed this language would revolutionize communication
Okay.
and eliminate ambiguity.
Right.
He even thought it would allow us to reason through calculation.
Okay.
Remember, he saw the universe as inherently rational,
Right.
governed by logical principles.
So no more fuzzy arguments or misinterpretations, just clear logical deductions.
That was the dream.
Wow.
And, his vision wasn't entirely far-fetched.
Okay.
We see echoes of it in modern efforts at universal communication, like Esperanto and even computer programming languages.
Right.
They're all symbolic systems.
Okay.
Designed for precision and efficiency of expression.
It's amazing to see how some of these ideas, which seem so radical in his time, have actually manifested in the modern world.
Right.
And speaking of radical ideas, Leibniz was way ahead of his time in his appreciation for Chinese thought.
What?
Most European scholars in his day viewed Europe as the center of the intellectual universe.
Right.
But Leibniz saw China as an equal partner.
He was fascinated by the I Ching and believed it contained profound truths about the universe. He corresponded with Jesuit missionaries in China, eager to learn more about their culture and philosophy. He even envisioned an intellectual exchange between East and West, a true dialogue of civilizations.
It's remarkable that he had this kind of global perspective centuries before globalization became a buzzword.
Right.
His interest in China really reflects his broader philosophy of theoria cum praxi.
Yes. That motto, which translates to theory combined with practice, encapsulates Leibniz's belief that knowledge should lead to action and that we should seek wisdom from diverse sources.
So it's not just about learning for learning's sake, but about applying that knowledge to improve the world. It's amazing to think that someone back in the 17th century already had this vision of a global exchange of ideas.
It speaks to Leibniz's incredible foresight and his belief in the universality of reason and human potential. And this idea of theoria cum praxi wasn't just an abstract concept for him. He put it into action by founding scientific societies, promoting education, and advocating for social progress.
So he was walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
He really believed in using knowledge to make the world a better place.
Absolutely. He was a true believer in progress. In the idea that we can use our intellect and creativity to solve problems and improve the human condition. It makes you wonder what he would think of our world today. With all its advancements and challenges.
I think he'd be both amazed and concerned. Amazed by our technological progress. But perhaps also concerned about how we're using it. Especially given his emphasis on harmony and balance.
I think you're right. He'd probably remind us that knowledge is a powerful tool that needs to be wielded responsibly, ethically, and for the benefit of all humankind.
It's funny, we started this deep dive thinking about the best of all possible worlds. As this kind of cliche, a naive view of reality. But now I'm seeing it in a whole new light. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. But about acknowledging the complexities of the world. And then striving to make it the best it can be.
That's a brilliant insight.
Oh, thanks.
Leibniz was all about finding solutions. About using reason and knowledge to create a more harmonious and just world. And I think he'd be thrilled that we're still grappling with these ideas centuries later.
It feels like he's given us a blueprint for deep diving into any topic. Start with curiosity, gather your sources, analyze the information, and then ask yourself, so what? How could I use this knowledge to make a difference?
Exactly. Leibniz was all about connecting the dots, seeing the big picture, and then taking action. He was a true polymath. And his life is a testament to the power of interdisciplinary thinking. And a commitment to making a positive impact on the world.
This deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about.
Good.
I'm starting to see the world through a different lens. One that recognizes the interconnectedness of everything. And the potential for progress through knowledge and action.
I think that's the greatest tribute we can pay to Leibniz's legacy. To continue exploring, questioning, and striving to make this world, with all its complexities and challenges, the best it can be.
Well said. And who knows, maybe somewhere out there. In one of those infinite possible worlds Leibniz imagined. A world without suffering and conflict exists. But in the meantime, we have work to do here in our own world.
Yes, we do.
And I have a feeling Leibniz will be right there alongside us, pushing us to think bigger, act bolder, and never give up on the pursuit of knowledge and progress.
Couldn't agree more.
That's it for this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating world of Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Until next time, keep those monads perceiving and keep on diving deep.